welcome back to Crosswind Kids. My name is Miss Heather, and I'm so glad you have joined us this morning. Why don't you stand up with me, and let's start our morning off with some worship.
There's a spirit I cannot contain. There's a spirit I cannot contain. The same power that raised Jesus up from the grave. The same spirit I cannot contain. Everywhere I go on this road, high and low, where I go with you. So I won't be afraid, this my home. What may, where I go with you. Oh, where I go with you. Where I go with you. Your breath upon these bones, your fire in my soul. Your kingdom is my home, and I don't walk alone. Everywhere I go on this road, high and low, where I go with you. So I won't be afraid, this my home, come what may, where I go with you. So I
this morning, feeling kinda blue. A little sad, but I know just what to do. Whoa, oh, oh, whoa, oh, oh. I have learned that I can go to Jesus. He lifts me up whenever I need it. Whoa, oh, oh, whoa, oh, oh. When I'm worried, when I'm feeling down, that's when God comes through, turns it all around. Yeah, He gives me joy in every situation, keeps my spirits high, no matter what I'm facing. Oh, 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 oh. I'm feeling better, God made all the difference. He's always here to listen. Oh, 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 oh. He is my source, the one who gives me life. He is my God and He's good all the time. Oh, 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 oh. When I'm worried, when I'm feeling down, that's when God comes through, turns it all around. Yeah, He gives me joy in every situation, keeps my spirits high, no matter what I'm facing. Oh, 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 When I'm worried, when I'm feeling down, that's when God comes through and turns it all around. Yeah, He gives me joy in every situation, keeps my spirits high, no matter what I'm facing.
How important is a promise to you? Whether it's a promise you make to someone or another person makes a promise to you. Promises are so important, but we live in a world full of empty promises. People say one thing, but do another. Even the people we love will fail us sometimes. And sometimes promises are very easily broken, and that can bring a lot of pain and heartache. It can also make it very hard to trust someone that maybe breaks that promise. Well, today we're going to learn about someone who never breaks a promise that he makes. Let's check out this video before we get started in our lesson today.
I know, it's so exciting, but you can't tell anyone because I want it to be a surprise. Promise? Okay, talk to you later. Bye. That was my friend Monica. I was just telling her, well, I can't tell you because it's a secret. But anyway, I know I can trust Monica not to tell anyone because after all, she promised me she wouldn't tell. So, hold on, I'm getting a text. What? That's my friend Brooke that just texted me, and she told me that Monica just texted her all about the secret that she promised me she wouldn't tell. You know, that really hurts. Monica promised me she wouldn't tell, but then she broke her promise. Has something like that ever happened to you? Maybe you're like me, and someone promised not to share a secret of yours, but ended up telling it anyway. Or maybe your parents promised to pick you up from school and take you somewhere special, but then they totally forgot. When someone makes a promise and doesn't keep it, it can really hurt your feelings, huh? Promises are made to be kept, but sometimes people make mistakes and they don't keep their promises. People aren't perfect, and that can be really hard for us to deal with sometimes. But thankfully, there's someone who is perfect. God. He's perfect in every way, and He will never let us down. There's a pretty cool verse in the Bible that says, "Let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep His promise." Hebrews 10:23. Isn't that awesome? God can be trusted. He always keeps His promises. Even when others let you down, God never will. In your lesson today, you're going to learn all about how God keeps His promises. He has made thousands of promises in the Bible, but He's never broken a single one. and he never will. Well, until next time, see ya!
Have you ever had someone break a promise to you? Maybe it was just a little promise like, Mom promised to make meatloaf for dinner, but then she didn't. Or maybe Dad promised to take you fishing, but then he forgot and he watched a football game instead. Maybe someone broke a really big promise to you that hurt so bad that you didn't know how you could ever trust them again. Well, no matter how big or small the broken promise was, there is one who will never, ever break his promise, and that is our wonderful, mighty God. Well, today, we're learning through a story in the Bible where Abraham and Sarah had to learn to trust God to be faithful in his promises. Well, before we hear that story, let's check in with our buddy, Big Ray, to learn what you gotta know.
What you gotta know? What you gotta know? What you gotta know? What you gotta know?
Hey there, kids. I'm Big Ray, and I'm here to tell you what you gotta know. Today, we're talking about how God keeps his promises. So today, every time you hear somebody ask you what you gotta know, you tell them all of God's promises are true. God has made a lot of promises in his word. He promised he would never leave you, and that's true. He promised he would provide for you. That's true too. He promised thousands of things in his word, and every single one of those promises are true. So today, every time you hear somebody ask you what you gotta know, you tell them all of God's promises are true. And that right there is what you gotta know. This is Big Ray, and I'll catch you on the flip side.
What you gotta know?
Okay, guys, what you gotta know? All of God's promises are true. I find it so amazing that the God of the whole universe cares so much about little old me that he made wonderful promises. And no matter what I do, he will never, ever break those promises. Well, these are just a few of the many, many promises God says about you and me. Say these with me. He promises that I am forgiven and accepted by him. He cares for me when I'm weak. He will provide for me. He chose me and he calls me his child. He will give me all the strength that I need. He will never, ever leave me. He loves me so much, he sent his son to pay the price for my sins. And guess what? All of these promises are true. He will never break those promises. So what you gotta know? All of God's promises are true. Today's power verse says, "For God can be trusted to keep his promise." Hebrews 10:23. You see, God promised Abraham that he and Sarah would have a baby, even though both of them were really, really old. God's promise sounded too good to be true, but they both learned that what God promises, he will do. God isn't like us humans. God cannot lie. He is truth, and he will always tell the truth, and that means that we can truly trust his promises no matter what. So let's say that verse again. For God can be trusted to keep his promise. Hebrews 10:23. Today's Bible story is all about a man named Abraham and his wife, Sarah. Abraham and Sarah wanted to have children, but they were really, really old, and they hadn't been able to have children up to this point. They were older than most of your great-grandparents. Abraham was 99 years old. It's almost 100. And Sarah wasn't a whole lot younger. She was 90 years old. Now, have you ever heard of a lady who was 90 years old that had a baby? No way. Most moms, have babies in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, not 90. Anyway, one day, Abraham heard from God. It was a very special moment. Can you imagine God speaking directly to you, like face to face? Abraham knew it was God, so he listened really close. God said to him, "Abraham, I promise that you will be the father of many nations." Now, to be a father to a whole nation or country, he'd probably have to be a father to at least one child, right? So how could he be the father of many nations? Like I said, he was almost 100 years old. Well, one day, not long after God had made that promise to Abraham, Abraham was working in an oak grove when 3 important men came by. Abraham chose to honor them by inviting them to stay for a nice little lunch. They accepted his invitation and sat down in front of Abraham's tent to eat with him. One of the men told Abraham, "This time next year, your wife will have a son." At that point, Abraham was sure that God had been telling the truth when he made him that promise just the other day. However, when Sarah overheard the men, she actually laughed. She said to herself, "That is crazy. I'm 90 years old. I am too old to have a child." Sarah wasn't sure it was possible for her to have a baby at such an old age, but God had different plans. And what seems impossible to us is possible with God. He promised Abraham that Sarah would have a child, and they learned a very important lesson. Whatever God promises, he will do. For Abraham and Sarah, he did what he promised. A year later, just like God had said, Sarah had a baby named Isaac. Isaac would go on to have children, and his children would have children who would be the leaders of many nations, just like God promised. Abraham's story shows us just how important it is to trust God no matter what, because he always keeps his promises. Well, we're going to learn how we can trust God even now in the middle of our crazy, mixed up lives. But let's take a quick break before we get into that.
Wherever you lead me, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will get crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Wherever you lead me, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will get crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. I wanna live each day like anything can happen. Can't hardly wait to see what's next. I wanna face this world with wonder and excitement. Face every challenge, every test. Wherever you lead me, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will be crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Wherever you lead me, I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will be crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Walk through the valley, climb mountains high. Wherever we go, Lord, you are good. Can't hold me back now. I'm gonna fly. Wherever we go, Lord, you are good. Walk through the valley, climb mountains high. Wherever we go, Lord, you are good. Can't hold me back now. I'm gonna fly. Wherever we go, Lord, you are good. I wanna live each day like anything can happen. Can't hardly wait to see what's next. I wanna face this world with wonder and excitement. Face every challenge, every day. I'm gonna follow. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Life will be crazy, wild and amazing. I'm trusting you, God. You are good. Wherever you lead me, I'm
question for you. How many of you have ever made a promise to someone before? Like you promised to let your friend play video games with you, but when it was time, you just decided no, you just said no. Or maybe you promised mom, hey mom, I did a really good job cleaning my room, but when she got to your room, it was still a mess. Sadly, my friends, that is lying. It's also part of being a human. We all make all kinds of mistakes. It's sad, but we all have been guilty of lying or breaking promises before. It's not good to lie. It's actually a sin, and it's against one of God's commandments. But lying is actually the opposite of Jesus. In John 14:6, Jesus told his disciples, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. Jesus is truth. Everything about him is true, and everything he says is true. In fact, God cannot lie. He is perfect, which means his word is perfect. The things in the Bible are perfect. Everything God said is perfectly true. He cannot, and he also chooses not to lie. God tells the truth every single time. Well, in our Bible story, Abraham and Sarah weren't sure about that at first. I bet they probably questioned God telling them that they were going to be the father of many nations. But what God promised seemed impossible in our human mind. There's no way that we thought that Sarah, at 90 years old, was going to have a baby. But God doesn't do things always the way we humans think he should. God does things sometimes in a very supernatural way. In other words, he does things that aren't normal or natural for us humans to understand. God does things that are more super and more powerful than we could ever imagine. Even more powerful than a superhero. That's why, even though his promise to Abraham and Sarah seemed like it could never really happen, he came through, and they had a son named Isaac. God's promise seemed impossible, but Abraham and Sarah learned that they could trust God because he can do the impossible, and he cannot lie. Whatever he promises, he will do. He did it for Abraham and Sarah. He promised that they would have a baby, and guess what? They did. He did it for Moses. He promised that he would deliver the Israelites from slavery and bring them to the promised land, and he did. He did it for Noah. He told Noah that it would rain for 40 days and nights and flood the earth, and it did. Kind of sounds like a scary promise, but it didn't end there. He also told Noah that his family would be safe from the flood, and they were. He did it for Mary. He told her she would have a baby that would be the savior of the world. And guess what? 9 months later, Jesus was born. He did it over and over and over again throughout the Bible. God promised a lot of things to a lot of people, and every single time he came through. Whatever God promises, he will do. And that leaves us with one choice when it comes to God's promise. I must trust God no matter what. I want you to check out this video.
Jesus, I just don't trust you.
You don't trust me?
No, I mean, I want to trust you, I just don't.
I have an exercise that I think will really help you.
Oh, okay.
Stand here and face this direction. Now, do you trust me?
No, I just said I don't trust you.
All right, well, this is all part of the exercise.
Oh,
all right?
right, okay.
Whenever I ask you if you trust me, you say, yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Even though I don't.
It's practice.
Okay.
So, do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Now, fall back.
Are you gonna catch me?
Don't worry about that part.
Okay, that's the part I'm worried about.
You can do this, okay? Just trust me.
Trust you.
Fall back.
Okay, well, Jesus, I trust
Good.
you. Yes, I do trust you. I'm gonna fall
Okay.
back. Woo!
Oh, okay.
That's great.
Let's try this again. Just face this direction and keep your feet planted, all right? Do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you.
Now, fall back.
Okay, I'm gonna do it.
All right,
I'm really gonna do it. Okay.
good.
Oh, Jesus, you really caught me! I didn't think you were gonna catch me, but you did!
Oh, that was great!
That was great!
You're ready for level 2.
Level 2, here
Yes.
I come, baby! Woo! Whoa!
Okay, hold it.
Oh, you know what? You're too close. You need to move back.
Ah, right.
Okay.
This one's a little bit different, Laura.
Okay.
Stand here,
Uh-huh.
but face me.
Woo! Forward fall. I
Okay.
can do that.
Wait.
Whoa.
Okay, wait for my signal.
Oh, right, the Jesus signal.
Yes, the Jesus signal. Do you trust me?
Yes, Jesus, I trust you so much.
Good. Fall back.
That's awesome.
It is awesome, especially when you do it.
Seriously?
Of course.
Okay, Jesus, I don't know if you noticed this, but there is nobody over there.
I know it looks that way to you.
It looks that way. It is that way.
You can do this, Laura. Just trust me and fall back.
Jesus, I can't do that.
We can do it together.
I can't.
You can.
I won't.
So at the end of that video, we don't really know what would have happened if she would have fallen backwards while she was facing Jesus. But I bet you he probably would have done a super runaround to catch her. She wouldn't even known while she's standing there looking at him. The point is, we must keep our eyes on Jesus and trust him no matter what. We know that he's going to keep us safe. He's not going to let us get hurt. He is going to keep us from falling. Sometimes it may feel like he's not there to catch us, but he really, really is. And he's going to be there no matter what. The same way with God. He's always going to be there, no matter how hard it may seem to trust him, no matter how impossible his promises may seem, no matter how impossible it looked in that video that she was going to get caught by going backwards while she's looking at him, no matter how impossible it was. If Jesus says to do it, he's going to pull through, no matter what. Let's pray. God, I ask that you help us all to trust you no matter what is going on in our lives. I pray that we all remember to take time to dive into your word and to learn what your promises are and to stand on those promises. God, show us how trustworthy you really, really are, and help us to trust you even when we can't see what's behind us. We know that you're there. We know that you're going to support us. We know that you're going to catch us. We love you, Lord. Amen.
Rewind!
What you gotta know today? All of God's promises are true. I love pinky promises. God made a lot of promises. That's right, all of God's promises are true. Next question. How old was Abraham when God promised him he would have a son? 60 years old, 75 years old, or 99 years old? That's right, he was super old, 99 years old. Well, how old was Sarah? Was she 90, 100 years old, or 1,000 years old? Yikes. She was 90 years old. Next question. Where was Abraham working when 3 important men came by? His garage, an oak grove, or the church? That's right, he was working in an oak grove. True or false? One of the men at lunch told Abraham that he would never have a son. That's right, that's false. True or false? A year after God promised them it would happen, Abraham and Sarah had a son named Isaac. That's right, that is true. Next question. According to our lesson today, God cannot sing, dance, or lie. I've never heard God sing or seen him dance, but he cannot lie. but I'm sure he can sing and dance. Next question. According to our lesson today, whatever he promises, he will say, do, or ignore. That's right, do. According to our lesson today, I must what? To God, no matter what. I must obey God, I must trust God, or I must love God. Well, those are all true, but we learned that I must trust God no matter what. All right, last question. Where was our power verse found? 2 Corinthians 5:17, Hebrews 10:23, or Luke 2:15? That's right, Hebrews 10:23. And let's say that power verse all together one more time. For God can be trusted to keep his promise. Hebrews 10:23. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us online.